Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Look at this. This is the real reinvent crowd. You know, like, I don't know, it's like all the other days, you know, when they bring you in the door, it's kind of like, yeah, get through. And like today, they're like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. You're so good. This is the real reinvent crowd. I kind of feel like that they should actually have like the big party after this session, because you're the ones that actually deserve it. The ones that Thursday, you know, Friday afternoon should be the new like Thursday evening, I think. But we'll leave that up to the planners for next year. So I'm real excited. I'm Eric Iverson. I'm the CTO for Media Entertainment here at AWS. And I'm here today to talk about how to transform and innovate with AWS for Media and Entertainment. And I'm really excited to be joined a little bit later in the session here with Jason Lenhart, who is the VP of Engineering and Operations, Direct-to-Consumer Technologies with Warner Media. So let's get going. First of all, I have to tell you, I love storytelling. I mean, I really love stories, and I think you do too. In fact, I'll bet some of you actually created some new stories for yourself this week, and unfortunately, I know that you unfortunately have to leave those stories here in Vegas, which is a real bummer. But we really do love stories. We love them for film and television, to sports and music and games. We love how they teach us how to address challenges, overcome adversity, learn from our mistakes, and imagine the impossible. Stories teach us about each other and helps us to improve our understanding of the human condition. And they also help us understand the Earth's condition from pole to pole. And I think the only thing that I love as much as the art of storytelling is the work we do together as an industry to help storytellers from everywhere tell their stories. I guess that kind of makes us like storytelling tech or story tech engineers. And you know what? I think it's a great time in history to be a story tech engineer, don't you? A couple of weeks ago, Josh Steinauer, a market analyst for Devoncroft, described this moment in history right now as possibly the most exciting, transformative, and innovative time in media and entertainment tech as we will ever see in our lifetime, and possibly in the history of media and entertainment. And you know what? I actually agree with that. And I've been in the business for a long time. So with that, let's jump into our agenda today and talk a little bit more about this transformative time. Today, we're going to cover three things: a short reintroduction of AWS for Media Entertainment initiative that we launched in April, some new updates in each solution area since we launched, and most excitingly, we're going to listen to Jason here in a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the launch of HBO Max. How's that sound? Pretty good? All right. Thank you for being with me here this morning. All right. Regardless of which part of media entertainment industry you're in, you're undoubtedly coming up with big disruptions. This is pushing you forward faster than ever before to reinvent your workflows to stay competitive. Here are four of the biggest areas of disruptions we've heard from our customers over this last year. First of all, globalization. Remote and virtual production. We have more workforces that are in more places. Some of that has to do with the global pandemic, and we need to be able to reach those artists in more places. And then the other thing we're trying to do is actually bring the locations into the studio with virtual production. And so that we have a lot of that we see with globalization. The second is global audiences. We are now reaching more audiences in more places. Jason is definitely going to talk about that. And because of that, we need to have more global production to be able to tell authentic stories from more places around the world so that those stories resonate with regions and cultures everywhere. The next is modernization. In modernization, we see this efficiency that we all need to get, which is being driven by the cloud, trying to get content from the ground into the cloud so that we can help with creation, storage, computation, production, and also distribution. The next is archives. And with archives, we've seen 20-year-old archives that are not being used, and that needs modernization to be able to leverage those assets. And we've been looking for ways for years to try to figure that out, and now is the time. And last is speed. And I think all of you are feeling that. Again, Jason later is going to be talking about this, but the importance of speed to market, speed to change the consumer experiences we're going around. So modernization is key to all of these things. Monetization, and yes, if it feels like I'm using azations a lot, yeah, if it was azation, it made it onto my slide deck. So monetization, direct-to-consumer and first-party relationships will become really important for all of us, and that is because when we get down to our next one, personalization, we need those first-party relationships to be able to personalize experiences. But those direct-to-consumer and first-party relationships have become very important, and we're seeing more companies really move forward with that to help with their monetization of their assets. The second is the value of digital advertising and being able to do that. So the more I can have a closer relationship with my customer or my consumer, then I could actually drive digital advertising better with better yield. And the last is leveraging your intellectual property more broadly across your entire entertainment company. So we see all of those as really important kind of monetization trends. And the last one is personalization. And I really love this one, and I think everyone needs to really pay attention to this one because we're going to see a lot more of this in ways that have been unexpected. So the first is one that you're all familiar with, and Jason will show this a little bit. If you're on HBO Max, you get some very nice personalization, and that's curation. What am I going to watch? But the second and the third ones are ones that are emerging. And the second one is an experience. And so if you've ever seen like the slime zone that you see from, that was done with Viacom CBS last year with the NFL, super cool. And that's a great example of what I think you're going to see of different audiences, and I have 3 kids, being able to have different experiences for the same content, and being able to personalize that experience. And the last is the journey, and I think we're just starting to think about that and work that we're going to do in archives where I could actually have a horizontal journey personally across content that I have, not just telling me what I want to see, but actually have a horizontal journey of my content. And as these trends advance, it puts a downward pressure on our yield per asset. There's a lot of competition in our industry. And so we need to really kind of think about what we could do to actually address this problem. And it creates a challenge on all of us to find ways to innovate across the entire entertainment value chain, from creation to distribution, and leverage new capabilities in things like data science to gain more insights and drive more tailored and delightful consumer experiences. We need to reduce costs and the effort so we could repurpose those efforts and energies on the value that consumers and media companies will see. So with that, we, in April 2021, launched AWS for Media and Entertainment. And this aligns our purpose-built media and entertainment capabilities, including 9 AWS services, 11 AWS solutions, dedicated AWS appliances, and more than 500 partners with our own solution architects, industry specialists, and ProServe teams. We do this against the 5 solution areas of content production, media supply chain and archive, broadcast, direct-to-consumer and streaming, and data science and analytics for media. This alignment also makes it easier for you, content creators, producers, rights holders, broadcasters, and distributors to select the right tools and partners for your highest priority workloads, accelerating creation and production launches, and see faster time to value to help you improve your yield per asset equation, that tricky yield per asset equation, which is not going to go away. We will always continue to develop industry-leading building blocks, but we're also putting just as much effort now into visioning and realizing complete solutions with our partners and customers. Now, while we've developed deep focus and raised the bar in these 5 solution areas, I just wanted to make it clear that these are only jumping off points for our conversations with all of you. We realize that there are many other business areas, workflows, job responsibilities that are covered by more than just these. So AWS Solutions have also some tailored market personas, such as in areas of music and radio, sports, smart venues, corporate operations, publishing, ad tech, and martech, for example, and we're definitely having those conversations with customers as well, and we will continue to see a specialized persona focus from us in the year ahead. But before we jump into our 5 solution areas that we're going to deep dive into, I wanted to start with an upfront recognition of our partners in media and entertainment. AWS for Media and Entertainment includes more than 500 leading ISVs and system integrator partners with experience across each of these 5 solution areas. And these partners include Adobe, Autodesk, Dolby, Epic Games, Evertz, Grass Valley, Imagine Communications, Slalom, Media Cloud Services, Trackit, Teradici, and Wiseline, just to name a few. These 500 partners, along with our dedicated industry specialists and AWS professional services teams, we have made it much easier this year for you to find the right partner option for your workload, organizing partners by solution area and even within our own teams, but they're available now on our website. So if you go to our website today, you will be able to double click into that some more. So we make it a lot easier for you to be able to kind of find these partners with us. We know that our partners' success is intrinsically tied to your success. We know that whenever we do solutions these days, they're typically bigger, they're more complex, and they're going to include many components in that. When we do things like content production, we don't do it alone. And we're going to double click into some of these partner-related stories in just a bit. Okay, well, you know, I'd be remiss, and I'd probably, in fact, get in trouble if I just didn't take a minute to call out the AWS for Media and Entertainment purpose-built services and products that we have. So AWS for Media and Entertainment includes 9 purpose-built services, which you see up here, and hardware and appliances such as AWS Elemental Link and AWS Media Live to provide the most purpose-built set of capabilities of any cloud. These services take you from content creation all the way with offerings such as Amazon Nimble Studio and AWS Cloud Digital Interface, or AWS CDI, and give you the core ingredients that you need to work all across the 5 solution areas, all the way through out to distribution with Amazon CloudFront. Okay, let's hop into my favorite area, content production, where it all starts, because if we don't have this, we're not doing anything in media entertainment. Faced with unprecedented demand for new content with growing adoption of remote and production workflows, studios use AWS content production capabilities to quickly set up remote artist workstations, editorial workflows, collaboration platforms, and rendering to support artists everywhere. Creative companies are seeking to do 3 things. 1, collaborate globally, that globalization piece, and get to creating faster. So this is a challenge. We need to be able to get our artists working much more quickly, and we need to be able to simplify their infrastructure even as we do more and more things like more visual effect shots in our work. AWS provides the most comprehensive set of cloud capabilities to produce content, enabling you to spend less time managing hardware and render farms and more time creating and collaborating using virtual workstations that run on EC2, G5, or G4DN instances. There's great partners that we get to work with, such as Adobe, Autodesk, Epic Games, and Teradici. But I'd love to just double-click into Epic Games for a moment. So with Epic Games, which is the creator of Unreal Engine, and also the creator of Fortnite, with over 400 million players now, that's quite an astounding feat, they're becoming a really important component of the media entertainment landscape. One of the things you might not know is that when it comes to Unreal Engine, that was introduced 20 years ago with the film AI from Steven Spielberg. And since then, they've gone on to become the premier tool that is used and the tool of choice in virtual production. And for us, Epic Games is a very important relationship for us at AWS. And they are now part of our partner network with native integrations into AWS GameLift, a game server hosting with Graviton 2 support, and recently pre-announced Game Spark, which is going to provide back-end tools for building, running, and scaling interactive experiences. And yes, if you have your watch there, you've probably been waiting how long I'd have to go into this conversation to actually use the word metaverse, but that would include metaverse experiences too. So there, if you had your bets on it, please go cash in your chips. Next, what I would want to say is that there's a couple areas of solutions and services that I would want to call out. And of course, that all of our core services, such as storage and compute and databases, play really important roles when we're putting together virtual workstations for productions. But I would want to call out also really some of these very important new services that have come out, such as Nimble Studio, which actually makes it much easier to spin up a virtual studio in the cloud in basically hours or days instead of weeks. And that makes it much faster to get your artists working. And we have some examples of that here in a minute. The second is that we have now really doubled down on the edge. So probably if you go back a year ago, you probably heard us that we had a local zone in Los Angeles. It was our first one, was in Los Angeles. And what you may not know is actually the AWS local zone in Los Angeles was in fact originally commissioned and pushed forward from our industry, media and entertainment. And that was to be closer to Hollywood production workloads that needed basically single-digit latency operations for virtual workstations and for artist workstations. What you might not know, and because you probably didn't see us talk about it too much this particular reInvent because we had so many announcements, but since then, we now have 13 local zones around North America, and we have 3 more already in the work. And this is basically bringing the cloud much closer to the edge. But that's not the only way that we've done it. We have AWS Wavelength 5G, and we also have the AWS private 5G networks that we just announced, which I'm very excited about, and I can see offering help to productions as we stand them up and scale them down. We also have things like new additions to the Outpost servers and the Snow family. So you see a very concerted effort from us across the board trying to bring the cloud much closer to the content creation process that's happening. So let me highlight a customer. So when we talk about doing production in the cloud and visual effects work in the cloud, we have incredible companies like Method Studios that have been doing it, Untold Studios that launched an entire creative studio in the cloud, and Weta Digital, which is incredibly well known for work with Lord of the Rings and Planet of the Apes, and continues to push the edge in visual computing. But I want to call out Netflix. Now, Netflix has continued to be a major innovator with us, and they went all in AWS in 2008 and ever since. But one of the things I love that they did this last year is how many people have got a chance to watch The Crown, the Emmy Award-winning The Crown? Great show. You need to go watch it on the plane on the way back if you haven't seen it. over this last year, due to the globalization and due to the pandemic workforce situation that we have to work in, the visual effects team for The Crown took a team of 10 artists and basically used cloud-based workflows on AWS to be able to complete more than 600 visual effects shots over that 10-episode run this last year on season 4. And I want to do a special call out to that team because that team actually ended up winning a Visual Effects Society Award for Gold Stick on that visual effects team. So a special call out to the Netflix team for that. But this shows you what is possible now, today, in global workforces when we're in the world of content production, and we are going to continue to make it easier for you to do that in the year to come. Now that we've made our content and we've got it going, let's get that content going where it needs to go next. And it gets us into our next solution area of media supply chain and archive. AWS has unmatched experience supporting media supply chains from creation, ingest, processing, to distribution to and from the cloud, which is where, honestly, many of us started our journey into the cloud. That's where I started my journey into the cloud, was in media supply chain. While we have been at it for quite a while, though, we certainly haven't solved all the problems. Customers today are still asking us to modernize archives using machine learning for searchability, provide durability in those supply chains because they're getting much longer, much broader, and much more global, and leverage that extensive experience to help with really complex workflows globally. Because of this, we have developed a great number of industry partners along the way, as we have now more than 80 AWS partner ISVs with a dedicated tools for media supply chain and archive. That's quite a long list, and there's some really tremendous partners on that list. Heading into 2020, though, I love this example that we see from SDVI. So in 2020, Discovery Plus, it was moving quickly on to their launch for their new subscription service, and Discovery had an urgent timeline. They needed to basically ingest A&E Network's assets into their platform in a rapid pace. The initial estimate predicted that the job would take 30 to 60 days with a team of 5 working around the clock. Well, that just wasn't going to work. By leveraging SDVI Rally, which is a cloud-based native media supply chain platform that deploys all the application and infrastructure in AWS, the final solution provided the agility and technical capabilities that Discovery and AE Networks needed to meet their aggressive deadlines. And in the end, that team was able to deliver the entire library in 5 days, which was pretty incredible. And we also have other really great partners such as Telestream and Delet and many, many more that do similar kinds of work for us that we're really proud of and have made great advances in the industry. Nothing like giving away the magic moment there. All right, so the couple things I want to call out here is one thing on core services. So we've been at this for a long time, and like I said, you come to use core services such as the elemental media services like Media Convert, Compute and Storage, and S3, all the way from your S3 standard storage, all the way through S3 Glacier Deep Archive to help with some of our media supply chain needs. But in September, we snuck in one instance type, which I want to call out because many of you may not have heard about it, which is the EC2 VT1 instance that features hardware and acceleration for video transcoding and are optimized for workloads such as live broadcast, video conferencing, and just-in-time transcoding. So just one more tool in the tool chest, and something I would definitely want you to be able to look at a little bit more. All right, so I want to talk about customers now. So you've heard us talk a little bit about Discovery and A&E. Nippon TV is another one we've had some great success with, and Viacom CBS, which we wrote about a little bit last year. But there's a story that was really great that came out last year that we didn't focus on as much, and that is the story about theatrical. I don't know how many people actually still enjoy going to the movies, or in fact, maybe you really miss going to the movies because you really feel you haven't gone back. Yeah, thank you. You know what? I love going to the movies. It's still kind of a one and only experience. And the movies business has gone through a lot of globalization as well. So we're delivering movies in more places. If you look at international box office, it's much larger than the US domestic box office now. And we're doing that much faster and trying to get day and date. The challenge is that particular supply chain for delivering digital cinema packages just does not scale with satellite and does not give us the flexibility and the kinds of dynamic supply chain distribution network that we really want for being able to support kind of in-theater experiences. So If you look at what Deluxe did, Deluxe really kind of took this to heart as one of the major distributors for the digital cinema packages and went to go see what they could do to kind of reimagine that using the cloud. And so what they did is they used a combination of services such as Snow Cone, which is an edge device, AWS Data Sync, AWS Lambda, and AWS S3. And now Deluxe can support theatrical customers more easily, more scalable, and support same-day and day-and-date releases all across the world, being able to support brand new business models that we can, even if I change my schedule at the last minute. I thought that was just such a great example of being able to cleverly change a supply chain. So now a lot of the supply chains were focused on direct-to-consumer, but that is also playing a major role in theatrical as well. So, you know, a reinvent wouldn't be anything without talking about new, exciting new service releases. And I think if you work in media supply chain, you know that you're really in media supply chain when you, for some reason, get super excited about a new storage tier. That really, if you're in here and you're excited about a new storage tier and you got kind of tingly when the announcement got made, that means you really love media supply chain. And I got a little tingly when I heard about this one too. And that is the S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. And for many of us, we've heard this request from many customers, so we listen to you. And what this allows us to do is have, and it's based on the same performance as the S3 standard storage class, is the same kind of low latency performance that you would expect. What does that mean? That puts a new storage class right in between S3 standard service and Glacier, so that just kind of completes the set. So for many companies out there, what we've heard is that, hey, well, I would really like to move these and modernize my archives, but if I'm going to do all of that work and make it searchable, the value proposition to that is, for me, is being able to use some of that archive material right now into my storytelling. And that in particular, I think we're going to see, and this is going to unlock a lot of opportunities, especially in sports and news, where rapid access to archive really, really matters. So, speaking of sports and news, let's talk about broadcast. Broadcasters have begun the process of a historic shift to the cloud. They, and some of you, are shifting television channel ingest, processing, creation, and distribution operations from on-prem and satellite to cloud at an accelerated clip, and gaining time and resource savings in the process. AWS is the leading choice for broadcasters, and if I asked you how many channels are now running in the cloud, you might be surprised. Today, there are over 2,900 channels worldwide originating from the AWS cloud. Customers including Fox, Viacom, CBS, and Discovery have helped pioneer the future of video delivery using unmatched portfolio of purpose-built AWS services. Broadcast priorities now include accelerating cloud migrations with ready-made solutions to make it easier and faster because they're trying to move quickly, providing high-quality video at lower latency, and reducing costs while increasing agility. Really trying to solve that yield per asset problem. We partner closely with more than 25 AWS partner ISVs for broadcast technologies, including Evertz, Grass Valley, and Imagine Communications, to work with forward-leading customers, including many of you, to reimagine what broadcast in the cloud could look like. One of the partners I would like to call out is Amagi. So Amagi is a global leader in cloud-based technology for broadcast and streaming, and helped A&E Networks UK transition its playout service of its entire 30-channel lineup in Europe to Amagi's cloud-based platform, which is now running on AWS. And now they're reaching more than 58 million homes across 100 countries in EMEA. And you can see what kind of agility that's going to be able to give A&E going forward. We use services such as Elemental Media Connect, a high-quality transport service for live video, and AWS Media Live software and hardware and encoding for live outputs. Customers can basically position on-premise workloads where they are needed, building broadcast workloads on AWS for live events and 24/7 channels. CDI enables you to deliver uncompressed video over the AWS network with network latency of less than 1 frame of video. That's really exciting. Think about that. I know that this is a service that came out last year, but this is one that you, if you haven't started digging into it, you need to do that now. And that, combined with AWS Elemental Media Connect, is going to make it much easier for you to move uncompressed video across the cloud and support those broadcast workflows. In addition to that, we've also made every bit count with StatMux, and so now with statistical multiplexing, we could further optimize your channels for distribution. So you hear us talk about video quality a lot, and I might ask, well, why? And that's because when it comes to enjoying your favorite football game, and whether that football game is American football or European football, it doesn't really matter, quality matters. It gives more enjoyment to be able to watch any of these live sporting events, especially as they get faster and we have better camera angles when you can see it in UHD and HDR. No question about that. And guess what? When more fans are watching, that helps our yield to asset equation problem. So let's talk about customers. So customers have been doing a lot of great innovation. So from BBC, Fox, which we talk about a lot, and it continues to drive innovations for us, including CDI, and KBS, the Korean broadcast service. But I want to actually drill into a small item here in the vein of some of the globalization and that yield per asset problem. See, sometimes it's actually the small things that can actually matter. And if you look at what happened with ITV in 2020, they were actually seeing some pretty good numbers. They had a 4% total increase in viewership, a 14% increase in viewership digitally, and that sounds pretty good, right? That sounds pretty good. Everything's looking rosy. The challenge is that they were feeling significant downward pressure from advertisers who were trying to conserve cash during the pandemic. So they needed to kind of turn and relook at that yield per asset equation and look how they could actually save costs. So by using EKS on EC2 spot instances, they were actually able to drive down $150,000 of compute costs in 1 year. Now that sounds exciting, but what's nice when you do these kinds of things and these innovations, it's not just $150,000 compute costs. The other thing that they were able to do was they were able to reduce the amount of time it took to put new features into production from 40 minutes to 4 minutes. That's a big difference in being able to have speed and agility. And I know with a lot of our modern platforms today, and HBO Max is going to be one of them, we're putting a lot of new features into productions all the time. And so that agility makes a difference. In addition to that, they were able to increase the amount of microservices by about 30%. And that's what I really like about this as an example. It shows us that we're not just trying to save money, but we're trying to improve agility. So raise your hand if you like streaming. Oh yeah, you have to do it because we have HBO Max. And every hand has to go up. And you know what? I like streaming too. We at AWS, we love streaming. In fact, AWS offers the most purpose-built services for direct-to-consumer and streaming, helping leaders like Netflix, Disney+, HBO Max, Peacock, Discovery+, Hulu, Prime Video, all to reliably deliver and monetize and support live and on-demand media over the internet. AWS has more than 15 years of media entertainment experience with streaming companies, and this experience is needed right now. Is when we hear from customers as they're seeking to scale globally and efficiently and quickly, maximize their monetization opportunities, and provide engaging, personalized experiences. To help customers with media entertainment, AWS for Media Entertainment includes more than 50 AWS partner ISVs to offer tools and support for direct-to-consumer and streaming customers worldwide, including Evergent, Kaltura, and Erdetto. I'd like to double-click on Erdetto for a quick second, because this is a good example of partners leaning into the AWS for Media Entertainment initiative. Erdetto Control API integration now integrates with AWS Media Convert and AWS Media Package and provides customers with secure, scalable, standards-based solutions for protecting live and on-demand video workflows. And that's pretty exciting. So let's talk about services. So first of all, we're just going to start with the network. So if you want to deliver massive VOD catalogs of live streams or to millions of viewers all across the world, AWS has the largest global infrastructure footprint of any cloud provider, and we all need that when it comes to direct-to-consumer. And you could take those streams all the way to the end user, all the way with CloudFront CDN's 216 plus points of presence. That's really valuable. So that's what, when we kind of had done our launch earlier this year, we were already kind of sitting in that position. But since then, we've had some more exciting announcements, and even some more this week. So you could just see that we really love direct-to-consumer and streaming. First is Link UHD, which launched this summer. And this allows you to easily get your 4K HDR video from ground to the cloud with a simple, inexpensive appliance. You should check it out. It's super cool, and something that the NHL, we love to see with some of the work with the NHL. Elemental Media Live launched HTML5 support for motion graphics to support live streaming. That's actually super interesting. And Elemental Media Tailor this summer launched Channel Assembly, which allows you to create live channels with your existing video assets while avoiding unnecessary transcoding costs. And just this week, you heard CloudWatch launching 2 new services to help streamers with Evidently, with A/B testing and feature flags, and CloudWatch RUM for monitoring applications and client-side performance. And I'm sorry, I know you heard CloudWatch RUM and some of your heads went to a different direction, but in fact, this is actually helping with client-side performance, okay? So you'll have to get that after the show. Okay, next, I want to talk about customers. When it comes to customers, certainly we have international and global customers like Canal Plus and Netflix and Peacock that you're really familiar with. But on the globalization front, I would like to really call out MX Talkatalk. Now, this may be not a service that you're familiar with, but this is a really interesting story. With regulatory changes in India, consumers were faced with looking to some new alternatives in social media. MX Talkatalk quickly accelerated their product development and launched their product in 1 week. The service went from 0 to 1 billion daily video views in 1 month and leveraged core services from compute and storage, database, Elasticsearch, Spot instances, AI/ML services such as Rekognition and SageMaker. And MX Talkatalk was also able to tune AWS Rekognition to help meet stringent community safety requirements. So you can see that elasticity and that global footprint, how it's extremely helpful to be able to launch new services. Okay, we just talked a little bit about recognition, so let's bring this portion of the program to a close with my favorite, one of my very favorite. If I love content production, I'm a little bit nerdy on data, so I love this topic just as much. So let's talk about data science and analytics. Customers, including the NFL, the Bundesliga, and Formula One, build dynamic audience experiences and create new ways to measure and visualize world-class competitions using the broadest set of capabilities from data lakes, analytics, databases, machine learning with AWS. Media and entertainment companies can ingest and analyze billions of audience events per day with the highest cost performance of any cloud and choose from unmatched machine learning capabilities to segment audiences, forecast inventory, perform contextual analysis, and create personalized experiences and recommendations. Priorities for customers in data science right now include easier insights. We're looking to get much easier insights, and actually some of the announcements we made this week are going to help with that, to measure, understand, and improve audiences. And we're also looking to basically integrate a lot of these AI and ML services directly into our media workflows and finding new ways to use AI and ML. And then last is we're also looking to personalize and provide better discoverability for media. So partners that use AI and ML technologies also include EPAM and Gray Meta and Veritone and Quantify, and some of those you might be familiar with. What you might be less familiar with is when I bring up companies like Clipper and Delete and EditShare and Impress Media Asset Management, Evertz, IMT, Keycore, Promi, SDVI, Starchive, Synchronized, and Trackit. All of these offer off-the-shelf solutions with built-in AI and ML technology to meet their highly specific customer needs. What's great about that list is you're seeing AI and ML services moving into the partner network to actually support the other 5 solution areas. And we see that internally a lot too. On the services and solutions side, of course, we have the core services like 15 purpose-built database engines, which is more than any other cloud provider, and media and intelligence solutions such as AWS Rekognition, Transcribe, Comprehend, and Translate. These media and intelligence solutions help us with everything from language detection, closed captioning, and translations, subtitling, to everywhere to even including compliance. On the personalization side, while personalization isn't a new service this year, we did have 2 pretty exciting announcements to that, and it's great to see where that service is going. And I really appreciate the media entertainment features that they released this week, and also new features to help with segmentation capabilities. So if you didn't have a chance to hear about it, that's definitely one to follow up on. It was also great to hear about the serverless analytic capabilities that were going to come out, making it easier to deploy analytic workloads. And then certainly SageMaker Canvas, which is a no-code offering, is going to allow your analytic teams to be able to scale faster, because it's certainly very difficult to find a lot of data scientists these days. And the one that's kind of nerdy for me, SageMaker Ground Truth, which is a really great tool to help you with labeling. But the Ground Truth Plus, for me, is just such an interesting example. And for me, I actually, a long time ago, had actually used something where you're looking to get some kind of a scalable workforce out there. So being able to have a scalable workforce like Mechanical Turk, it actually can work. And being able to have that helping with the labeling and make that easier is going to be great for customers. So I'm going to close with this last story before we get into our HBO Max conversation, which is last conversation is going to be about Formula One. So while we've had some great customers such as Bundesliga, Discovery, the Globe and Mail, Formula One has just been doing some great innovation. And Formula One is looking to drive competition even further in the sport by using AWS machine learning services to improve car design. F1 simulates these changes using computational fluid dynamics, which is really cool. So this is like fluid dynamics, but basically rendering that and being able to do modeling that way, across 550 million data points using AWS high-performance compute services to make simulation cycles faster. F1 developed its next-generation car 70% faster than before and created a car that reduced downforce loss from 50% to 15%. Super cool. And if you haven't had a chance, go up on the 5th floor and you can kind of get a chance to just go look at a Formula One car. Formula One also uses Amazon SageMaker to build machine learning models that help us fans better understand split-second decisions and made by the driver and the pit crews that dramatically affect the outcome. But it's also great for measuring performance and, most importantly, for the fan experience, where we could do things like start and stop analytics and get that information into our storytelling. So, without further ado, I think we should talk a little bit more about fan and consumer experiences, don't you? So with that, I would like to introduce to the stage Jason Leonard, VP of Engineering and Operations, Direct-to-Consumer Technologies at Warner Media. And we're going to talk a little bit about HBO Max. So Jason, thank you so much for being here today.
No problem.
Here's
Thanks for having me.
one chair for you. Sorry, it's a little self-service today. We'll do
Sure.
that. And here, we'll just scoot these over a little bit. There we go. All right, so Jason, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
HBO Max, wow, what a story. You know, I follow that internally a little bit, but I think a lot of people don't realize how quickly that all happened. So do you want to maybe just kind of just tell us a little bit about that? I mean, this happened faster than most people think. I mean, you typically in the past have measured deployments in kind of years, but you did it in months.
Yeah, so, well, first off, HBO Max. And so what is HBO Max? I'm not going to assume everybody here knows what HBO Max is. And so it's really about 3 different content catalogs coming together for Warner Media. And so that's Warner Brothers. You might have heard of Warner Brothers. They have a TV division. They also have a major motion picture studio as well. And so movies like Ocean's 11 were here in Las Vegas, all the way to The Matrix. And then you might think about things like Big Bang Theory. You also have the Turner catalog, so they pretty much own March Madness. They have things like Turner Classics and TNT and the NBA. And of course, HBO, which is things like Sopranos, Succession, which is in season 3 right now. So it's really about all 3 of those catalogs coming together. And so one of the, if you go to the next slide, one of the things that you'll see on our marketing is something that says something along the lines of where HBO meets so much more. And so, you know, what it takes to build something in such a short period of time, bring these sort of catalogs together and build an experience and actually deploy it and everything, in short, is just about having a really incredible team of talented people. They're passionate and they have a sense of purpose. And so the sense of purpose is really simple. We want to bring some of the world's most beloved content to the world. And when I talk about team, and I really mean this sincerely, is that it's not just about the team that shows up to the office every day. It goes on a WebEx every day. It's really about the extended team. It's the family members at home. You know, if you're a parent, it's the entire family. You might be a caregiver. It's everyone there. They're along for this journey, and I don't want to be remiss in not mentioning that because this is a time of disruption, and we did blur the lines between professional work and your personal life, and so it's really important to recognize that. So to sort of give a little bit of an idea of our domestic launch before I get into more of the international side, we did launch on May 27th, and you might recall that in March of 2020, we had a global pandemic. And so in a more practical sense, if you go a couple more forward, in a more practical sense, we tried to take on this approach. So I joined HBO Max in September 2019, and the overall objective, of course, was we were going to launch HBO Max. And so when you start thinking about short time frame, how we had a platform, but we felt like, hey, we needed to scale it. And when I say scale, you might think about technology and scale and things. I'm talking about scale of processes, like running an incident, having security, being able to understand what our customers are experiencing, because we can't be in that room with them, so we actually have to rely on analytics. And so one of the things I did was, okay, there's a lot here. We have a very small team. We never have enough time, right? I think we all struggle with that in technology, is that we never have enough time. However, we have priority and we can work as a team a little bit better. So what you're seeing here on the screen is
A lot of stickies.
a lot of stickies. We love stickies. Who doesn't love stickies? And so what you're seeing here is prior to the pandemic and the lockdowns happening, this is our office in New York City in Hudson Yards. And so what you're seeing is we sort of said, hey, what do we need to do from an operational and preparedness perspective? And what you'll see is swim lanes. And so at the top is load and spike testing. There's game day, war gaming, there's reliability, scalability, ops visibility, incident management, release management, and of course security, last but not least on the bottom. And these were areas that we really had to lean into as we prepare to go international. Really important.
What were some of the couple of things that you maybe added a little bit further into the process? So I bet you got some of the basic building blocks up at first, and then you probably added a few more along the way.
So a couple things that you may not realize necessarily is that what differentiates us a little bit from a lot of other streaming services is our sheer volume of content and the use cases that we have. So a good example would be we ended up purchasing a company called UI TV. And so when you think about technologies on clients, like think about Roku. There's like 40 different Roku devices out there. They're in sound bars, they're in TCL TVs embedded, they have devices and sticks, and there's a wide variety of things that they're capable of doing. And to steal like an AWS term, they have different levels of compute. And so one of the things we did was said, hey, we really wanted to develop a technology, and we wanted to keep it in-house. So we acquired a company called UI TV. And it allows us to actually deploy across all those devices without having to write specifically for each one of those devices, if that makes sense. So you sort of normalize the code to those devices.
That definitely helps you scale.
It definitely helped us scale. And
Probably a good choice.
It was a great
A good
choice.
bet.
It's really working out well right now for us, and we love them. And the other side of this is that we ended up load and spike testing. So some people might look at that and say, well, that's pretty interesting. That makes sense. He did load testing and all. But we have some very unique use cases. So think about Sunday night. If you're a fan of Succession, there isn't a Sunday night that I'm not online, and I'm watching our metrics, right? And our teams have virtual watch parties, and we look at it because it's very popular, and it drops at 10 p.m. At 9 p.m. Eastern. Insecure drops at 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday nights. That creates a lot of load. And so for anybody who's familiar with making sure that they're pre-scaled and things like that, yeah, we want to make sure that's the best experience. We have to keep on top of those metrics all the time. So those spike instances, they're pretty unique to us as a streaming service. And so we have to account for that.
Yeah, I don't think at that point you can't just rely on magical auto scaling and things like that at that point. I mean, if you're not planning for it, it's not going to happen.
They're all showing up at that minute, at that moment in time. And so anybody who's into scalability knows that could be a problem. And we're pretty good at it. We love it. But it's thrilling at times. So we put a lot of work into that.
Yeah. Now you have a lot of content that comes from different places. I think that's one of the things that maybe people don't understand, that the complexity of your story is that when you look at and certainly like ingesting a single library, that's kind of one thing. But you actually had you have a lot of diversity in your content.
Oh, yeah, we do. So we talk about media supply chains, and so we have a lot of feeds that come in. And one of the things that a lot of folks may not be familiar with is we actually do live streaming. So in Latin America, we do UEFA Champions League. And so if you're a soccer fan,
love UEFA.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a big deal. And so there's a big spike coming at the top of the hour when we actually have those games. But that's just a good example of it's just not all, it comes into a media supply chain, we encode it, we package it, and we send it out to the masses. There's also live streaming. We also have AVOD as well that's a little bit different in how we actually bring it about.
Yeah, great example. Great example. Here, I'll let you drive.
Sure, no problem. So, we wanted to talk a little bit about building on the existing infrastructure.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. I think one of the things that that people may or may not know is you had some previous properties, And so the question is like, how much did you use your existing properties? How much did you go new? How did you make those decisions? So how much did you leverage what you had, and then what was new?
So we had, you might be familiar, we had a couple properties out there called HBO Go and HBO Now. They were largely on the same multi-tenant platform already. It was just based on your login and be a different experience. Now they were very HBO-centric, so HBO did not have nearly as much content as we currently have in our catalog. And so, but we were going to build on top of that. One thing that HBO Now did have that we're really proud of, it had a heritage of being able to bring about Game of Thrones online. And so a lot of folks who are Game of Thrones fans, including myself, really cool, looking forward to House of Dragon. Here's the thing about Game of Thrones. It was one of the largest streamed events in history. So that platform actually handled that. It was really exciting to watch that. It was just enormously successful. So we wanted to lean into that. We knew we could handle the scale.
Great show.
Yeah, it was a great show. You might have heard about it. So one of the interesting things about the slide is when I start thinking about this is like our scale really, our secret sauce is in our people. And what better way to talk about our people than through DC Comics, which is something we own. And so this is from Zack Snyder's Justice League. And so when we think about these superheroes, I think about my team all the time because I really do regard my team as like superheroes because the things we do, being so small, is pretty impressive.
You know, I love that you did this. Like, you know, at Amazon, we care about tenets a lot,
Sure.
and principles and whatnot. And so I thought it was so cool that you kind of persona-eyed, you know, the folks on your team and kind of like some of the core tenets by.
Yeah. So let me dig into that a little bit. So Flash, everybody knows Flash, right?
Love Flash.
Flash is mastery of speed. So one of the things that we do in our production environment every single day is we do easily over 1,000 changes per day in our production environment. You say, wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a whole lot.
That is
and
a
so
lot.
there's risk when you do production changes. And so one of the things that we really want to make sure is that we guard ourselves from a lot of adverse reactions. You know, we might have a poor change that comes in. We use things like the global accelerator to traffic shape away should something happen. We need to roll back fast as well. But without that speed, we could not have made it to market nearly as quickly. If we balled up all the changes, we had a QA process, we then released it, and then we sort of slowly ramped it up. It's just going to take too long. So we built systems around the notion of speed. If you think about Wonder Woman at 84, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but Wonder Woman is spectacular. She has these amazing sort of equipment with the bracelets and then the lasso, which is the truth teller. So I look at our reliability engineering team very much as truth telling. A lot of times you might be in a room and somebody might say, well, you know, it should fail over like X, or it should do this. And so what we don't do is we don't believe that. What we do is we inject the faults in and we break out the lasso and we say what really did happen. And we do it in production too. So we have to be very sophisticated again on how we actually contain the blast radius of that. Batman. Now Batman doesn't really have a superpower. I mean, he's great at martial arts.
But he's cool.
He's cool and he's super
Smart.
wealthy, I guess. And so, but the thing about Batman's great is that he understands the talents of everybody and he understands teamwork. And one of the things when we were launching that I felt was very important was people put aside a lot of politics and, no, this is my job, that's your job. And people just really chipped in. We had this true sense of purpose. We wanted to get this content out to the masses. We believe in it. We still do. It's amazing. And so Batman is very special in that regard, bringing teamwork. So Cyborg. Cyborg, he's sort of a character made up of more, I would say, artificial pieces that allow him to do things like flight and all. And just like everybody who takes and cares for a platform, you have technical debt. So do we. You know, I just talked about how we had HBO Now. It wasn't perfect. And so one of the things that we have is we're sort of swapping out a lot of the parts in real time and doing it all for the basis of our customers. We want to make sure they get the best possible experience. So UI TV was one of them. We do a lot of things in the back end with purpose-built databases to get the sort of resiliency up as high as we can, the latency down as low as we can. So that's really special. Then Aquaman. So outside of being able to communicate with dolphins and the fish and the sea, he has an amazing way of bringing together people and understanding what they need at the right time. And so our team, when the pandemic hit, we were very quick to rally around each other. When somebody was having a hard time, they pulled them aside and said, hey, take some time off. Hey, do you need a break? hey, can I do a virtual happy hour with you? It was a very special moment for all of us.
You should double click into that. I mean, this was a really large, I mean, there's only been like a few mega launches, and this would be one of them in entertainment history. But the timing of your launch and the beginning of the pandemic were quite close to each other. Do you want just like 1 second on that? I mean, that had to have been like incredibly disruptive.
Yeah, it definitely was. So all those stickies, if you believe it or not, they're still all there. And we left it there just because we thought it was like, it's a little bit like a museum. You walk in, I'm so proud of that. But we did move all of that over virtually. And we started the next day. And I'm sure like everyone else, we woke up and everybody tried to WebEx in or get on VPN, and their own IT departments were not really scaled to meet everybody doing this on the same day at the same time. But we had to overcome that. And so we had to do a lot of very practical things. And one of them is, we might have to make 1,000 decisions in a day. We have to get most of them right. And so we really empowered the teams to take it on and really feel empowered to do what they needed to do to be successful. And so if you start thinking about other sort of regions, right? And so recently we just launched into LATAM and Latin America. So we launched 39 countries in a single day. And so that's tough. That's hard to do.
Really hard.
So, you know, a lot of times people dip their foot in the, they'll dip their toe in the water and they'll say, well, do, you know, maybe Buenos Aires first or something like that. But no, we said, hey, we're going to go and we're going to do 39 countries.
Now, was it you saying that or someone else saying that to you?
So one of the interesting things was, I'll avoid that. But one of the interesting things is that when we did this, we did it remotely. So we didn't have a lot of people on the ground. We were talking about the pandemic, and so a lot of the pandemic was really hitting Latin America at that time, and we felt strongly, really, if there's anything we could do in any way, shape, or form, however little it could be, we wanted to bring our storytelling to Latin America, and so that really drove us. And so stick with me. I'm going to get to the Coleman Lantern, but the funny thing is that we did this all remotely. We had a handful of people testing on the ground, but it's not the same as actually being there, the people who are responsible for the platform. So a few of us were in Miami at the time, which is where our HBO offices are located for Latin America. And so we'll wake up early in the morning, as you can imagine. It's like 3 in the morning. And we're going to go to the office, and we're going to get the war rooms ready, and we're going to get all of our screens up, and we're going to be ready to push the button on the app stores to, you know, break out the apps in all the areas of the world, and walk in there, and no power in the building. And so we try to do our best to prepare for everything, but you're never going to prepare for everything. But what I can say is that how that board of stickies has evolved is something called an hour-by-hour plan. And it says this is what everybody's doing at every hour in the lead up to the launch and during the launch, and who's doing it, and what we expect the outcomes to be. From there, we talk about things like mitigations. One of the mitigations actually was nobody could get into the building. There's no power. We had a Coleman Lantern, if you can believe that. And so we put the Coleman Lantern on the,
I love this story.
on the table, and we said, we're going to launch. Let's do this. And so we got our laptops open. We hoped that our batteries would last long enough until the power came back on the building, and we did that. And so we had a very successful launch, 39 countries. You know, nothing's ever perfect, but we get better every time, and it went really well. And it was about as flawless as we could have expected. So now, if I fast forward a little bit to the Nordics and Spain and what's happening next in our next rollouts, we just recently did the Nordics and Spain. And so unlike Latin America, we were actually in the Nordics and Spain, and so some of us are in Madrid, some of us are in Stockholm, so it made things a little bit easier. However, in true continuity, one of the things that we did do is we turned off the lights and we put the Coleman Lantern, and we said, we're going to keep going with this. And so once again, we had a very successful launch. People are loving the content over there. And so if I think about what's coming up next a little bit for HBO and where things are going, you know, I talked a little bit about Sunday, and we have those Max originals, like shows like Love Life. Certainly that's playing right now. House of Dragons Succession is very big. But one thing I want to talk about, another unique thing about HBO Max that a lot of other streaming services have not encountered, is that we do something called day and date releases this year. So we take Warner Brothers movies and we release them on HBO Max as the same as we release in a theater. For a portion of the year, the theaters weren't open, so it was just exclusively us. So we've had an incredible run at this. Now, you can imagine some of the movies are very popular, and you know, we want to make sure it gets off without a hitch, and we've been very fortunate, and we're very proud to be partners with AWS, and we've got amazing support, and shout out to Keith and his team for helping us out. But we've done anything from Dune, from Godzilla versus Kong, and then one thing I'm very, very excited to watch is Matrix Resurrections coming up on the 22nd.
All right, that's coming out when?
December 22nd.
All right, we're all going to see that.
And so, you all don't have to show up right when it drops. You get to be just get some popcorn, relax. No, just kidding. But
if you did, you can handle it.
We can handle it. We're ready to go.
You got the lantern.
We got the lantern.
We need some reinvent lanterns for next year. I think as someone in the marketing group here, we'll get some reinvent lanterns.
But you'll see, the thing about HBO Max that's been really exciting for us is that I talked about the live soccer a little earlier, and so that's been really exciting. We do the Brazilian League soccer as well, and a little known thing that we just started doing is these concert series in Latin America as well. So we actually have live streaming at concerts, which a lot of folks don't know about, and so we're really proud of that.
That's what I love, is this real diverse. I mean, you really are touching on quite a few different number of media entertainment experiences. So when we kind of talked about the future of experience, you guys, you're already thinking about what a lot of those things look like. And I think sometimes, when we only see U.S. content, we don't realize there's different experiences in different places.
It's true, and I know we're sort of closing up on time. I can't speak enough for the team. The team's been amazing. We started with, when I'm looking out in the audience and I see Rada, and I remember the first time we met, we didn't really have a security team, and so what Brian Lozado and his team has done has been spectacular.
It was such a wonderful team.
And we've been really proud of the things that we're doing, and so I know this wasn't the most technical of presentations, and I did that for a reason. And the reason was because we've been hearing all week long about a lot of innovative practices and technologies and things like that. And sometimes we lose sight of the fact that one of the most fundamental things we could do innovatively is how we support one another in the teams. And so I once heard, recently I heard a prominent psychologist talk about, during a time of disruption, the most important thing you could do for your teams is give them recognition just for doing their job, just showing up and doing a great job. And so if there's one thing I want you to take away from all of this, outside of all the amazing content and all the great work we've done, is to go back home and think about how you give recognition to your peers and your teams just for showing up every day. This is a time of disruption. It's super important that we do that. And that, to me, is the foundation of all the innovation. And all of this stuff would not happen without that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think innovation only happens when you have great teams working together. I've never seen anything ever happen in our industry from an innovation point of view with teams that are dysfunctional. So, couldn't agree more. And you have such a wonderful team. And I think everyone should go maybe tweet a few nice things about HBO Max. We'll get some recognition back. So quick question for you before we get to the very end. So on the AWS side, maybe just a couple things that would be helpful for everyone listening to here today to kind of to know that where you kind of leaned in with AWS and the services that you've really kind of valued the most.
Yeah, so if I think about some of the services, the sort of global accelerator, I mean, there's a lot of performance improvements we had when we transitioned over, but something I really love about that, and when we talked about Flash earlier, is our ability to traffic shape. So if we had a challenge in one of our AZs or one of our regions, we can just shift right over, and we could stop that blast radius, that challenge from happening. That was really key. Purpose-built databases, that's great. Can't tell you how much we love our sort of managed services around that, and let me give you an example. So we have those spike events. Oftentimes the limiting factor in those spike events is those downstream resources. It's been working out incredibly well for us. Something that not a lot of people might not think of is CloudWatch. So we talk, for us, ops visibility and what our customers are seeing
Super
is very
important.
One of our primary things is we have this thing called user journeys. There's a gentleman named Tom Barker. He did a This Is My Architecture on it recently. And so what we do with them is we sort of use those as outside-in monitors. And so I know that's not the traditional thing necessarily for CloudWatch, but that's one of the ways we use it, and we think it's pretty innovative. And
hey, we like every way that you use CloudWatch, so you can. I think it's a great way of thinking about how to use the tool.
Sure.
Yeah.
Lastly, hey, Eric, thank you so much for inviting me up on stage. This is a real thrill. Had a spectacular week, and thank you for your support.
Yeah, my pleasure. So glad you were here. And look, for me, there's nothing more exciting when we get to actually hear in the customer stories. And by the way, really is that HBO Max fanboy out there. I think that, and I will shout out to the whole team and Brian and you and everyone. I just think it was a really incredible launch. And so I'm glad you were able to come tell the story. Truly, I mean, 11 months to get to a launch of that scale and do it through the pandemic, that is pretty historic.
Yeah.
That is
so
pretty good stuff.
Central Europe's upcoming. And so if you have any friends over there, please tell them to take advantage of any promotions we might have coming.
All right, everyone's going to watch. Everyone's going to go watch. Between now and Monday, you're going to watch, promise me you're going to watch one HBO Max show.
There you go.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you so much for being here today. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for our session. Hopefully we did a good job of giving you some more insights on what we're doing for AWS with media and entertainment and how to innovate in the year ahead. And if you have any questions, we'll be hanging out outside. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of the reInvent, and it was great seeing you today.